For regular videos on ancient cultures and forgotten civilizations, please subscribe.
This would also explain the ancient carvings in Egypt, which so clearly indicate light sources, it's boggling to think anyone would even argue it. In the Hathor Temple, the Dendera Light is one such image. It perfectly resembles modern electrical technology, showing a wire inside of a bulb-like area, and a box which appears to be a receiver.
This is the image that Dimitrov is talking about. It boggles his mind that anyone would even argue that these are not light bulbs, and that this snake here is not a filament. If these light bulbs existed, and they were in widespread use throughout Egypt, you'd think we would find the remnants of a whole bunch of them. We haven't found one. Not even the parts of a light bulb. No glass-making shops, not even a shard of glass, nor any other clear material for that matter. What we are looking at here is a lotus flower, the Egyptian blue lotus, or water lily to be precise, associated with the god Nefertem. Lotus flowers are depicted all over Egyptian art, so it's not difficult to identify it. The lotus was significant to the Egyptians because it opened and closed with the rising and setting of the sun. The opening symbolized the dawning of a new day, new year, or new cycle, which is appropriately depicted in a temple associated with the New Year's festivals. The behavior of the lotus and its color, blue with golden yellow interior, led to a belief that it was the original container of the solar gods. In Egyptian myth, the lotus was part of creation. The sun god Re, or the god Atum in another version of the myth, emerged from the lotus in an egg. In this image, the lotus flower is spawning a snake inside of a giant pod or egg, and there's no doubt that it is a snake. What does it represent? Har Sematawi, known as Harsomptis in Greek. It means Heru, uniter of the two lands, a personification of the sky, and in his other guise as Ra Sematawi or Resomptis, the personification of the sun, especially the new rising sun. At the Dendera temple, he is often shown as a snake. The image of a bubble surrounding the serpent also represents an actual hieroglyphic word, Iterti, which means primordial sanctuary, sacred place, or sacred palace. It refers to the primordial birth sanctuary of the sun. So the bubble surrounding Har Sematawi represents the protective enclosure of the sky, the environment in which the sun is born. It's associated with the womb or placenta of the goddess Nut, who swallows the sun each night and gives birth to the sun each morning. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at the inscriptions. The inscription above the figure on the right reads, "Words spoken by Har Sematawi, the Great, who resides in Dendera, the living Ba, that's a spirit, in the lotus flower of the day solar bark." In the lotus flower of the day solar bark, whose perfection the two arms of the Jed pillar carry as its image, while the Kas, these are animating spirits, on its knees are with bent arms. And the inscription above the figure on the left reads, "Words spoken by Har Sematawi, the Great, who resides in Dendera, who is in the arms of the princes in the night solar bark, the noble snake, whose statue is carried by He, whose Ka carries his perfection in holiness, because of whose Ba appearing in the sky, whose shape is admired by admirers, who comes as unique, enveloped by his serpents, with numerous names in the land of Atum, the father of the gods, who created everything." It's all right there for us. I'll leave you a detailed analysis of the wall art and the inscriptions in the description below this video, so you can go and get a full handle on what is depicted here. But I think it's fair to say that Dimitrov didn't even bother reading what is on the wall. The Hathor temple at Dendera, by the way, was started by Pharaoh Nectanebo II, who reigned in the 4th century BCE, a period well documented in Egyptian history. But most of the temple, including the art we're looking at, comes from even later, the Ptolemaic period, when the Greeks ruled the land. Greeks, Persians, Romans, and all sorts of other foreigners were visiting and writing about Egypt at this time. Guess how many of them talk about the great light bulb technology of the Egyptians? Yeah, none.
Across from this carving is a similar image, but the system appears to be falling into the hands of a reptilian-looking being. as though it's a warning of the potential to abuse this technology.
Reptilian-looking being. That's the Egyptian god Upu, who has the body of a baboon and the head of a toad. How do I know that? Because near the figure, the inscription reads, "Your name is perfect as Upu. Your face is that of a toad." I'm not lying to you. It actually says that. And then Upu speaks, "I have killed your enemies with knives, and I fell your opponents at the place of execution." In Egyptian myth, Upu is the partner of Hathor and protector of Harsamatawi.
Mainstream historians scoff and make more primitive conclusions, but still, the pyramids show no sign of soot from flame torches.
I guess by primitive conclusions, he means not so high-tech. In my mind, his conclusions are the primitive ones because he uses the "it looks like" method of interpretation. It looks like this, so it must be this. It's easier because it requires no research. As for the soot, as a point of comparison, can Dimitrov show evidence of soot from flame torches in other Egyptian tombs? The ancient Egyptians used oil lamps, not flame torches. When they were digging out the pharaoh's tombs in the Valley of the Kings, they used soft animal fat to burn because it was the cheapest, but not when they were putting the finishing touches on the interior of the tombs, because the smoke would have spoiled them. Castor oil, and in some special cases sesame seed oil, burned cleaner. And by making the wicks short and keeping the flame low, they made less soot. We know this because the Egyptians kept written records of everything, including the number of wicks and the amount and type of oil used every day by the tomb builders.
Instead, there are multiple carvings which show these antenna-like objects that appear to be a transmitter, near another object shaped like the famous symbol, the Ankh, which appears to be the receiver.
This is not a receiver, but a djed, a well-known image in Egyptian art. The djed, sometimes called a pillar, represents a backbone and signifies stability. It has a long history of usage in art, which I don't have time to go into. There's a significant amount of documentation on the djed, which I encourage you to go look up. What we are looking at here are columns featuring the head of Hathor. How do we know this? Because they're right outside. These Hathor columns are at the very temple from which this wall art comes. So anyone who knows even a little bit about the temple would immediately be able to identify these columns. They're also at many other temples in Egypt. The column is topped by a sistrum sound box in the shape of a temple. The sistrum was a musical instrument used in the worship of Hathor and held in these boxes. Sometimes sistrums were made in the shape of the Hathor columns. As you might surmise, the columns are made of stone and are not antennae. I should also mention that the ceiling of the hypostyle hall at the Dendera temple, the temple featuring the so-called light bulb technology, is caked with soot.